I've been covering the Rasheem Carter killing, or whatever happened to him. We're not sure. In my last installment, I talked about how Benjamin Crump has basically dissolved any chance of getting to the truth of the matter. To give the truth a proper Viking funeral, we bring in this dude, Rashad Richey. Mr. Rashad Richey. He does not have legitimate doctorates. At any rate, he's going to weigh in on this, and you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. I'm telling you, this is going to get ridiculous. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
A man, black man, dismembered body was found. Initially, they said, well, this must be the doing of an animal. Put up the picture full mass.
And the fact that his remains were scattered over like 2 acres is undoubtedly the result of animal behavior. Animals will do that, especially wolves and coyotes, and they have plenty of them there in Mississippi. An open body laying out in the wilderness is going to get ravaged. Bank on it.
You see, the family of this 25-year-old deceased black male, his name was Rasheem Carter. This was in Mississippi. That family decided to push the issue. A Mississippi black man who was found dead 1 month after going to local authorities, wanting help from the federal government. They want help from the federal government to investigate his death.
He got it all fouled up. I guess he was reading from a script or something, but Rasheem Carter didn't go to local authorities looking for federal help.
Carter's decapitated body was found in a place called Taylorsville, Mississippi. He reportedly went to the police department on October 1st, 2022, asking for help, expressing he had been chased by a group of white men in trucks.
Yeah, there's some discrepancies here. The police said he mentioned nothing about that. In fact, he said he mentioned nothing about anybody wanting to hurt him. Rasheem's mother claimed that he told the police that these white guys, truckloads of white supremacists or whatever, were out chasing him. And I told you in my last video, I think she lied. I don't think that ever happened. I think she made that up. She's wanting to get people like Ben Crump all stirred up so that he will get interested in her son's killing.
This all before he texted his mother, Tiffany Carter, that, and I quote, 3 truckloads of white guys were trying to kill him and shouting racial slurs. So then she then told him, go to the police.
He got it wrong. That's not what he texted her. I mean, Rashad Richey, come on, dude. I read his educational doctorate, and so the inability for him to get anything straight is no surprise to me whatsoever. But to be clear here, he did not text her about the white dudes chasing him. He texted her that he was having a problem with his boss and that if anything happened to him, it would be his boss's fault. The whole deal about the white dudes and trucks chasing him, I think that was her story that she made up.
Right? Dutiful young man. Now, the new sheriff of Taylorsville Police Department says he hasn't ruled out the possibility of murder after initially saying there was no reason to suspect foul play at all.
Well, there's nothing inconsistent about that. They found the bones and they examined them, and there was no evidence that he had been attacked. There wasn't any evidence that he hadn't been. It's just that the bones were in an extreme state of decay. So there's no evidence in front of us that there was definitely foul play involved. But that doesn't mean you rule out murder. It's still on the table. I mean, this guy is supposedly going after a Juris Doctorate, and he can't even get even the most basic, simple understandings about forensic science straight.
He has now changed his tune. Attorney for the family, Ben Crump, calls
Oh, hell, here we go. Ben Crump.
this a modern day lynching, saying because they failed to act. What we have is a Mississippi lynching, said Crump. A Mississippi lynching in 2022. America, you cannot turn your head away. We need the highest levels of law enforcement to administer justice for Rasheem Carter as if he was your child.
Just to be clear, I don't know if he was murdered or not. There is a good possibility that he was. I'm not buying that story about a bunch of white guys in trucks chasing after him, though. But I'm also open to the possibility that he was not murdered, and that there is another logical reason for his death. I'll tell you at the end of the video what I think happened.
Crump continued, this is not a natural death. This represents a young man who was killed.
Based on the thinnest of evidence, they don't care. I mean, they might even deep down realize, yeah, well, okay, this looks like an accident, but they're going to still get out in front of that microphone and tell the whole world that it was a murder. That's how these guys operate,
said Crump. His head was severed from his body. His vertebrae, his spinal cord, was in another spot they discovered away from his severed head. They have recently found remains that they believe are also Rasheem Carter at another part of where he went missing. What that tells us is that this was a nefarious act, an evil act. Someone murdered Rasheem Carter, and we cannot let them get away with this. Crump also added that the family was given Carter's head and spinal column in a box from the state crime lab. And remember, the authorities said no foul play initially. Some of the last.
No, they didn't. They said there was no evidence of foul play, and they had none. As far as the body dismemberment goes, I'm sorry, but that's animals. Are we really expected to believe that these white supremacists not only killed Rasheem Carter, but they basically dismembered him to the point where his spinal cord is found in a completely different location than his head? I mean, why would they do that? If they are just out to kill him, they would just shoot him and then leave. They don't want to hang out there in the woods dismembering a body. People might stumble on him or something. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Furthermore, and this is the big one, if they're going to dismember the body, they're going to need saws and stuff, and those are going to leave marks on bones that are very obvious. The pathologist looked at the bones. There's no evidence of that. These were animals. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he died of natural causes. I mean, he could have been murdered and then simply left out there in the woods for the animals to scavenge. But the fact that his body is located in completely different zip codes, that has to be animals. There is no way that a bunch of southern white goobers went out there and killed somebody and did that to them.
As text messages, very sad. Here it is. This was sent to his mother. It read, "Me and the owner of this company not seeing eye to eye, mama." One text message read, "If anything happened to me, he's responsible for it. I'm too smart for it, mama. He got these guys wanting to kill me." And that's what he sent to me. Tiffany Carter added that her son's car was not operable, and he had been riding to work with a coworker until they got into an argument on October 2nd, and her son was forced to walk.
By the way, there's something strange about this text message. When she was reading it at the press conference, she had to go over the name of the person. In other words, she said at that moment, I'm not going to be able to say his name at this time. But when you read what we have here, it doesn't look like that name was in there. I'm really starting to wonder about this a bit. Let's go back and listen to her again.
Owner of this company not seeing eye to eye, mama. His name, which I can't say at this time, but if anything happened to me, he's responsible for it. I'm too smart, Mama. He got these guys wanting to kill me.
So what do you think?
A family friend named Aisha Green agreed to drive to Taylorsville to pick up Mr. Carter, bring him to his hometown of Fayette, Mississippi. But he was not at the gas station where they were supposed to meet. Tiffany Carter reported him missing a few days later at both the Taylorsville Police Department and the Laurel Police Department. Smith County Sheriff, let's put him up, Joel Houston. Okay.
Yeah, let's make sure we put him up. And why? He's white. It's Rashad Richey. What do you expect?
The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation declined to comment on the open investigation and referred inquiries to the Smith County Sheriff's Office. Smith County Sheriff Joel Houston told NBC News that his office was awaiting potential warrants to determine whether any devices pinged near the area where Carter's remains were found at the same time he went missing. Houston also said Carter's co-workers, including the ones whose name he gave his mother, have been ruled out as suspects after the authorities were able to confirm that when Carter was last seen alive, their phones were almost 100 miles away from Taylorsville at another job site. Houston says they confirmed their whereabouts through phone records and GPS.
All right, let's make sure we understand here what's being said. The suspects that they almost certainly had pegged down, including that person who was probably in the text message that she was reading out. Remember the person that the mother said, well, she can't name him at that time. Their cell phones pinged at another job site quite a ways away. They weren't anywhere near Rasheem Carter. Furthermore, it also says that they confirmed their whereabouts through phone records. In other words, these people were using their phones also during that time. That pretty well does confirm that they were nowhere near Rasheem Carter. And that's probably why she wasn't allowed to name the person on her text messages, because the police had already cleared him.
Let's put the sheriff back up again.
Yeah, we gotta put that dude back up again, that white dude. Let everybody know this is a white dude.
Okay. Now, Sheriff, listen here. Now, obviously, I'm no police, and
Oh, thank God for that. Oh, thank God that he's not a police officer. Well, he's going to be a lawyer, I guess, or he's trying to be. I can't imagine anybody giving that ding-a-ling a law degree. But then again, Kimberly Motley got one, so why not him? Actually, I think that Kimberly Motley is really rooting on Rashad Richey because he could take over the spot as dumbest lawyer on the planet from her. At any rate, he's going to now give this man advice on forensics. Listen up.
I don't want to be. But you do realize they could have just left the phones at the house. You do realize that?
Nope. Because phone records confirmed that they had the phones with him. You just read it.
I'm just saying, potentially. Also, perhaps, somebody else did it and there was a connection here. My point to you is this, Sheriff.
Yeah, somebody else could have done it and there could have been a connection. Sure, that's always true.
You don't rule out somebody conclusively, publicly, just because a cell phone may have pinged in another location.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So we're going to get the lynch mob going after this poor dude, even though it's pretty certain that he was nowhere near Rasheem Carter. Let's go after him anyway. Unless he turns out to be black. then all of a sudden, now his cell phone, it was on him, and at the job site, he couldn't have done it.
Right. There's more. This is such a twist and turn story. Initially, the authorities came out immediately and basically said, no foul play. This is the doings of an animal.
They said there's no evidence of foul play, and certainly the fact that the bones were scattered all over was due to animal behavior. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Okay. Now, Ben Crump, he has seen more death than the average human being on this.
Okay, guys. All right. I'm going to have to tell you ahead of time. What you're going to hear next could possibly be the stupidest thing you've heard, even before the Kenosha trial, even before Thomas Claire Binger started opening his mouth. Get prepared. This is going to be dumb beyond belief. Let's listen up.
This planet. You know, all of those families he represents, he has to see the bodies that are dead. Many times, he's the person who would transport the body, have the body transported to a real examiner for an autopsy. And he looks at those bodies too. So if anybody knows when there's foul play or not, believe me, through his experience, he definitely has expertise. It's unfortunate, but it's real.
Okay, hey, you know what? I don't feel sorry for you assholes at all. Don't go into the comments section and say, hey, why didn't you warn us about that stupidity? My IQ lowered by 30 points listening to it. You knew who he was. You know this is Rashad Richey. Don't give me that crap. This is like Kyle wandering into a band of rioters. When you see him and you wander anywhere near Rashad Richey, you know idiocy is going to surround you. So I am not responsible.
Fran, what are your thoughts here?
So we have Benjamin Crump, medical examiner, an expert on whether animals can scatter human remains all over a field. And why? Because he's seen a lot of dead bodies. I've watched a lot of football, but that doesn't make me an expert on football. Yeah, it is that dumb. But hey, it's Rashad Richey. What do you expect? Richard Feynman?
When I saw this story, I mean, it sent chills down my spine. And
oh, by the way, it's going to get even dumber now. Okay, no, it's not. I mean, he has already set the bar for stupidity. There's no way she can eclipse that, and she won't, but she'll get close. She's going to try really hard.
And it made me so disgusted with the fact that this is the year 2023 and not the year 1850. Like how long are Black Southerners going to be terrorized by white people? And I know I'm jumping to conclusions, but
yeah, you're jumping to conclusions. You said it yourself. Don't. It's usually a good thing to avoid. There's no excuse for you because you know you're jumping to conclusions, and it's not a good idea to do so. You don't know if he was killed. You don't know if he was killed by white people. You're just jumping to conclusions based on what? Social justice wokeism. She's a white savior here to stand up for black people.
I'm going to believe this kid when he says that he fears for his life, and that when that truckloads of white men followed him and scared him and harassed him.
I'm going to believe this kid when he says that, but you didn't hear that. You have not seen a text message from him showing that. You didn't hear him say anything like that, but you're going to believe him.
He's going to know. And again, in this country, man, why don't we take threats seriously?
Right.
Like why? Whenever the mass shooter, they're like, oh yeah, that person did have a manifesto. In fact, the FBI was following that person. You know, he did the right thing. He talked about it. He texted about it. He went to the police. And yes, suddenly you're gonna, their phones weren't with them. We know that if you're actually a cold-blooded murderer, you're gonna leave your phone at home. You know it's gonna be traced to you. There's more to this story. A wild animal does not decapitate a person, okay?
All right, let's go ahead, run down this one by one. She asks, when are we gonna start taking these threats seriously? When people like you quit lying about them. That's why people don't take this stuff seriously, because we can't trust people like you. You said yourself, I know I'm jumping to conclusions. Well, that's why we don't trust you and why we don't take these stories seriously. As far as I know that wild animals don't decapitate human bodies. Really, a pack of wolves will absolutely tear a human body apart. The fact that the head was decapitated from the rest of the body, which, by the way, Ben Crump loved to evidently tell the mother repeatedly, The fact that the head was decapitated does not rule out animal behavior, because animals will do that. And again, you can leave your cell phone behind, but they were using it. How do they pull that off? The police investigated the dudes. Evidently, they were not involved. Cope with that. Deal with it. That's the way it goes. That doesn't mean that there wasn't somebody else that killed him. And so they should be investigating this. It does look mysterious. It does look suspicious. However, I don't think that the guys that were named by him had any involvement in it. But the reason why they want these guys nailed is because they fear that if they find out who the true killer was, he might be black. Therefore, they've got their white suspects in their sights, and they're going to go after these guys. And thank God we don't know their names, because you know what these two would do. Now, I told you in my last video that I had a theory about what happened, and I do. It seems pretty unlikely, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. I don't know how he ended up in the woods. He was either maybe fleeing from somebody, maybe he had a mental breakdown or something, or what. But whatever, we know he was out in the woods because a trail camera caught him. And he's out there walking around with a big old stick on him. I have no idea what's happening with him at that moment, but I think he stepped on a snake. I think a cottonmouth or a rattlesnake got him. He probably panicked, got lost, couldn't find his way out, and the poison finally got to him. And then, of course, the animals came in and tore the body apart. Now, how likely is that? Don't know. There are a lot of water moccasins in the area, although I don't think there was a whole lot of water in the area where he was. So the water moccasins typically don't like to be too far from water, hence the name. There are also eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, and they are very deadly. And if you get bit by one, you'd better get to a hospital pretty quickly. So if he got bit by one, that would explain why he died. And the area has a lot of gray wolves, and they will tear a human body apart. So is this the work of evil people? I don't know. I really would like feds to investigate this and find out what happened to him, because if he was murdered, the people who did it have to be brought to justice. No doubt about it. But people like this are not going to help. They're only going to make it harder. Step aside, allow the experts to investigate, and above all, quit spreading rumors and stuff around. That doesn't help. Like my video, subscribe to my channel, and I've got a lot more on this particular incident. It's a fascinating case.